What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at 300 Rise of an Empire, the sequel to Zack Snyder's excellent classic, the original 300. This movie takes place before, during, and after the events of 300 and follows the new character of Themistocles, played by Sullivan Stapleton. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's talk about Rise of an Empire. I'm going to try and make this review as short as I possibly can, tell you what I liked and what I didn't like. So let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. What I liked. The cast in this movie is actually really solid. I thought Sullivan Stapleton did a good job playing Themistocles. However, I don't find Sullivan Stapleton to be a leading man type of actor, and to me, he did not have that on-screen presence as a Gerard Butler did. That's not taking anything away from Sullivan's performance. I thought he did well in the role. I thought he fit the role well. He just didn't have a commanding presence like a Gerard Butler did in the original 300. He didn't have that raw intensity and over-the-topness, yet subduedness that I thought Butler brought to King Leonidas' role in the original 300 movie. Stapleton, to me, felt more like an everyman, felt more like a common man, and not this over-the-top type of person. Now, maybe that's what they were going for, and if that's what they were going for, then they accomplished that. I just don't think that makes for a very interesting leading man, in my opinion. Queen Gargo and Delios, played by Lena Headey and David Wenham, returned from that first movie, and this is where I think this movie kind of falls apart. Gargo and Delios should have been the central focus of the sequel, since pretty much the original 300 movie leaves off with them still being alive. Gargo's got control of the Senate. She's going to send more troops to Greece, and Delios has now become captain of the Spartan army. I think this movie should have focused more on those two. Well, you can still tell Themistocles' character, because Themistocles, he is an important character, because we find out in this movie that he killed King Darius, who is Xerxes' father, which led to Xerxes becoming the God King. So as a character, Themistocles is important, but his importance kind of ends and starts right over there, and everything else to me in this movie is just filler and trying to find things for him to do. I think personally you could have focused more on Gargo and Delios while keeping the Themistocles character more as a third-day protagonist, still telling his story but trimming it down a little more, but beefing up Delios and Gargo, who I feel are kind of wasted in this movie. They don't really get that much to do until the end of the movie with the big climactic fight scene. Other than that, to me, they just feel like they're peppered all throughout this thing. Ava Green as the character of Artemisia. She's a welcome addition to this movie. I like Ava Green's performance. I like her character. I like how she is a Greek who becomes a Persian sympathizer, because the Greeks were the one who tortured, raped her, and killed her entire family. It was the Persians who brought her in, nurtured her, and treated her as if they were one of her own. And I like the whole dynamic of Xerxes and Artemisia having a brother-sister type relationship. I think you could expand it more upon that, especially when Xerxes becomes the God King and his ego kind of overinflates himself. I think that could have been I think the movie could have expanded more upon that. But overall, in a role, I thought Ava Green did fine in the role of Artemisia. I thought she was fine. From a production standpoint, this movie is directed by a guy called Noam Moreau, and he does the same visual aesthetics that Zack Snyder did in the first 300 movie. So aesthetically, it's the same. It has the same visuals. Though from a cinematography standpoint, this movie doesn't have that dark grittiness the original 300 movie had. To me, this had a more plain type of cinematography to it, and it doesn't really stand out. And to me, Nolan's biggest flaw is that he tried to emulate Zack Snyder, but at the same time, I don't feel like he brought his own flair to this movie. Visually, I appreciate him for staying visually faithful to the first movie, but he could have brought his own flair to it. He could have brought his own panache to it. I feel he tried to be a Zack Snyder copy, and in so doing so, his vision to me as a director kind of gets lost in the shuffle, because he's trying to be a carbon copy instead of just taking elements but putting his own spin on it. That's not to say this movie's horribly directed, because it's not. I think the fight scenes are well choreographed. They're very bloody, like in the first movie. The end battle is just mayhem unleashed. The opening prologue with Themistocles and the Athenians taking on the Persians is really well done, and I like it a lot. And we get a lot of backstory within that. We get the origin of Xerxes and how he becomes the God King. So This movie does have a good handle on its action scenes. They're all really well directed. The use of slow mo is done, as like in the first movie, is done in this movie, and it's done fairly well too. So I can't complain about that. Story wise, this movie, I don't know. From a story standpoint, I think this movie tries to tell a lot, yet it doesn't tell that much. The original 300 movie for me worked because the story was very simplistic and very simple. 300 was not about telling a story. It was about being a visual. It was about being a visual action film. This movie, to me, it feels like it tries to tell a story because I think this movie has more story than it does action sequences. And I don't know. It to me, it kind of like comes across as kind of meh. Nothing horrible, but nothing really all that interesting. I think there's a lot more talking than there is action in this movie. That's just me. That's just how I feel. But overall, I think Rise of an Empire is a good follow-up to the 300. I like how we get a, I like how it takes place in the past. I like how some certain events take place concurrently with the from talk. I like how some events take place concurrently with the original movie. The original movie focused on the Spartan side of things. This movie focused on the Athenian side of things. So I like how we get to see a second side of that. The Persians actually get more developed as human beings and not just as an irresistible force, which I thought was okay. Seeing Xerxes' backstory, giving him a reason to want to conquer Greece, it works. The story of Artemisia and her inclusion of the story, it's fine that you could have done a little bit more with her. And again, Gargo and Dilios, to me, they should have been the main focal points of this movie. I think they would have worked great as co-leads and seeing their continuation. Because, like I said, I think the character of Themistocles, take away what he does to King Darius, he kind of just blends in with the rest of them. That's just me personally. But that does not make Rise of an Empire a bad movie. It's still really, really entertaining, and I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Fix my flaws, and this movie could be at least an 8 at the most. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.